start with an open slate. I'm keen to hear what you would like to talk about today and what the focus of our conversation is going to be.
I would like to talk about jealousy,
Jealousy.
jealousy, social pressure, and also the neediness of want to be in love or want to be someone who is desirable to other people.
So that last one, is it wanting to be loved and be in love, or is it more about the love coming in from somebody else?
Coming from somebody else,
Okay. So
being
jealous.
wanted, being needed.
Okay. Jealousy, social pressure, neediness. I'm getting a sense that these are all connected in some way.
Yes.
Cool. Well, I already know you a bit, but be good for us to sort of just start like as if I don't know anything, so that I don't miss anything or make any assumptions. So let's start by maybe telling me a bit more about why these have come up for you and how they're connected.
All right. First of all, I think I've already talked to other Brojo members that I never had a girlfriend until I was 26 or something like that, mid 20s. And then I was still a virgin until I was back then, and then I broke my virginity to a prostitute actually.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I had my first girlfriend, and I never actually told her like how I broke my virginity. I didn't even tell her. She didn't really ask me, but I actually asked her how she did it. But she never actually put interest, probably. I don't know, maybe she was a bit shy to ask me. And then at the same time, my parents wanted me to, settle down, get married and all that, but in an orthodox way, which is like you have to maintain your virginity until you get married, and you get married under the Catholic oath, under the church oath, and all that stuff. Because I grew up in a Catholic family. I used to be an altar boy when I was maybe I was from maybe like 12 to like 15 years old. I was quite dedicated, and then I moved to New Zealand when I was maybe 22. And the first 8 years I was in New Zealand, I never missed a church every single week, every single Christmas or Easter's. And then deep inside, I kept questioning myself like, God, like I've been actually following your rules. I've been going to church and follow my mom's advice that I should do this, I shouldn't do that. But where's my reward? Like, I feel like the universe actually owe me something, for my good behavior. And what I want is just like, I want to have a girlfriend. I want to have like being in love and then being loved by someone. But I don't know how to do that, I felt like I'm a bit left out. And then I met a few girls, when I was in my teenage years, but I never actually had the courage to date them because my mom said like, oh, don't do that because it's gonna ruin your studies and all that bullshit, she said. So I follow her rules. I follow her advice. And then I just kept questioning myself like, where's the reward for being a good boy? Where's the reward for being a good, a nice guy? Until I stumbled to pickup artist, and then from there I just broke all the rules, just go overboard basically, like manipulative text games. I'm really good at text game, because I have accents. Some people just don't understand my accents, but I'm really good at writing essays, and that's actually my strength, how to get laid from text, from the text messages. I got most of my girlfriends are actually from text messages. Play the game, like see a girl, talk to her for a bit, ask her phone numbers, text games. That's usually worked for me in the past. And then I still feel like, even though I was pretending that I was not needing them, but actually I needed them so much to fill my gap. And then the more I wanted them to stay with me, the more they ran away. I didn't understand that, because maybe they could feel the insecurity inside me after I became their boyfriend. So it felt like, maybe in the beginning they thought, oh, this is a confident guy, he's like so cocky, funny, and then he doesn't give a shit. And he teases my balls, on the text games. And then when we become official, and this guy turns out to be a needy guy, oh, what the hell's going on, and they probably can sniff that insecurity. And then I never had a successful relationship for more than 2 years, basically. The longest, the 2 years, was actually with a very insecure girl as well. She had a borderline personality disorder. And from there, I learned a lot from her as well. How psychological thing people like her think, the way they behave. And also the good thing is actually I learned how to meditate just because of her. She often go to meditation retreat, and then there was a bit of some story behind it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so interesting. A couple of things I want to clarify there, and this is a backstory I'm actually quite familiar with, but it's good to recap it and hear it all at once again, to remind the what's brought you here. So one of the things when you say jealousy, that's referring to the like, where's my reward? Why are other people getting rewarded and I'm not? Is that what you mean by jealousy? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you followed God's rules, you followed Mum's rules, you did everything you're supposed to. Where's the payout? Why are other people getting paid out and they're not? Do you also get that thing where other people are getting what you wanted and they didn't follow the rules and they weren't a good boy, and they just kind of got it for free, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And then what really pisses me off, actually, like one of my closest friends, he's like totally the opposite of me. He didn't even give a shit at all, but he's got more friends than me. And I try to kiss his ass. And the more I do that, the more he actually uses me. And then he gets all the girls, it just pisses me off. I don't understand how it works back then, not just from him, also from a stupid TV movies, from something like that. Just even like fictional characters, from the TV. Then it's like, oh, this guy's a jerk. How can he get the girl? Like Brad Pitt, for example. Bad boy behavior.
Yeah, movies are pretty devastating with the whole "if you're good, you'll win in the end" story, which doesn't quite line up with real life. So you got the social pressure. So you got the pressure of your parents about the whole settling down, following the kind of Catholic path of life. You've got the pressure of watching everybody else get what you think you want and trying to catch up to them. I get a sense you feel like you were late, behind, slower than others, perhaps.
Right. Absolutely.
That pressure to keep up. And of course, all of this ends up with neediness. This kind of urgency that I've got to get this and get it quick, and I'm not finished without it, and I'm incomplete and less without it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So that's the backstory. Bring us to, where are you at right now with this? What's your current perspective on this? Where are you stuck exactly?
Actually, it's been like, I've been single for like 5 years right now. And then it just took me a long time to recover myself from this pickup artist behavior thing, which is, I still have it sometimes, it comes and goes. Just every time I see a person or an attractive girl, I always just want to approach them, so like maybe because I was really shy, like a decade ago, 10 years ago, and then after that I went overboard. But now I feel like I still have that kind of mentality, but it's kind of just like I'm actually going back to how I was, but from different mindset, which is like I'm not going to approach every single girl that I'm attracted to, not because I'm scared, but because I just want to get out from this pickup artist mentality, because that's all what I can think of, for the last 10 years. Because of that, every single morning, every single day, it makes me stressed out. And also, I'm actually, there is also one thing I want to point out, that I've got this urge that I want to get married before I turn 37. And when I reach 37, I just pick date that again. Or maybe I have to get married before I turn 40. And then I turned 40 just last October. And then I feel like, whew, I already passed that fucking thing again. I feel like actually more relief right now. I just don't feel like I actually have to do that anymore. So it's kind of like maybe slightly giving up, like all the idea of putting myself on pressure to get what I want within certain date. And then also I actually being like totally rebellious towards my parents, like totally not listening to them, because I know that their value and my value is totally different right now. So at the moment, maybe I appear that I'm single and I feel lonely sometimes, but I'm actually happier right now than when I had relationship with my previous girlfriends, actually, like a couple of them. Because when I was with them, I felt I was disconnected. I felt a bit more lonely. I wasn't attracted to them anymore. And I wish I was single. But right now I'm actually single, and actually I can feel that. I'm actually a bit happier than how I was, because every single day now, I don't actually think about how I score girlfriends anymore. I just feel like, how do I actually make myself happy? How do I actually enjoy my life more? Because if that mindset just keeps thinking like, how do I get relationship? How do I get people to love me? Just how can I be relaxed in my life? I've already spent like 40 years of, miserable. So I already passed 40 years now, and then actually I want to just move on to be happy, regardless whatever it is. I don't need anybody else to be happy. I just need to get my mindset to be happy, regardless what the situation is.
Okay. I'd like to reflect on that because I sort of can hear a story or see a picture. It's probably a better way of putting it. So essentially, it sounds like you've always been on a mission, and the mission is to find what you call happiness. And your previous understanding of the kind of recipe for that, the formula, was the get married, get lots of women formula. And you tried that formula in lots of different ways. At first, you were too scared to kind of do anything. Then you kind of broke through that. Then you, like you say, you kind of overcorrected and went really extreme with the pickup thing, sort of obsessed chasing of women. Constantly trying to like get the recipe right and nail it down. And it sounds like in your head, the picture of getting the recipe right was like marriage. If you find someone that you'd actually want to marry and you get married, then you've succeeded permanently. Permanent happiness would then follow. And it sounds now, rationally, you understand a couple of things. One is having someone in a relationship long term is no guarantee of happiness. That can actually be quite miserable. And you can also experience at least moments of happiness without anybody. So you can actually enjoy who you are without necessarily anybody else saying, I love you, you're the best, you're my husband, etc. So the way, like, as the story comes, forms a picture in my mind, I get the sense that you're in this position right now where rationally you believe that this recipe to happiness isn't something that involves other people. It's not about the wife. It's not about women loving you. It's something else. Something that you've had a taste of. You're getting a sense of what it might be. That's rationally. Emotionally, I think you're still attached to the old one. Emotionally, you still feel this urge, like the jealousy, the pressure, the neediness, the pressure especially is go do the other recipe. That's the right one. Even though in 40 years of trying to put that recipe together, it's never quite made the dish that you are trying to eat. It's the recipe's never worked, and yet part of you is still very much attached to making it work. How do you feel about my interpretation there?
Yeah, that's correct. It's kind of like you put it like in a kind of clear explanation, which is like, I was thinking like, in order to be happy, I have to follow this path, or I have to like recipe, like just I've been actually making the wrong recipe so far, and I thought if I actually get this right, for example, I'm trying to make a cookie, right? Mm-hmm. And then if I get this cookie right, like all this recipe, and then I read books and listen to other people, if I can get this cookie right, I'm gonna be happy. But the truth is, I never like cookie at all in the first place.
Well, that's the interesting part, because there's two assumptions behind your beliefs. So the beliefs, like let's say the real basic form of the belief, I need a woman to love me for me to be happy with my life. We'll say that's really basic, like oversimplified version of the belief. Well, there's two assumptions in that belief. One is that you need the woman, and the other one is that the kind of happiness you seek is a good thing to seek. Because one of the things, you've used the word happiness a couple of times, and that's a really loaded word. Everybody has a really different meaning to that word. And so it's important we figure out what your meaning is, because it's going to be different to you, to what it is to me, to what it is to the next guy.
Yeah.
And what I found in my experience is when people are pursuing happiness, they so often pursue it with like vigor. They throw their whole life into it, and yet they've never even defined what it is. They don't know what they're chasing exactly. They just chase it, assuming that it's some good thing to chase, that they'll know it when it happens, and it will be good when it happens, and especially that it will be permanent, that you won't be able to lose it once you've got it.
Yeah.
Some people pursue it with wealth. They pursue money as the source of happiness. Some people, it's their body, physical strength, or some sort of form of athletic performance. They think this will equal happiness, and that big word happiness. So why don't we start there? Because if you don't even like the cookie, there's no point in trying to cook it. There's no point in even looking at that recipe. So let's figure out what this cookie of happiness is. Okay. So when you say you're pursuing happiness, what do you mean? What is happiness to you?
Happiness for me is a state of mind which satisfies you every day. The word is every day, which is like feeling of security, like financial, relationship, or anything, even jobs, and feel like just basically just overall satisfaction, like you don't need anything else because you already have them. Like you don't need sex anymore because you can have sex on tap because you already have a girlfriend or boyfriend or relationship or fuck buddies or whatever. You don't need money anymore because you earn so much money, and then money just becomes abundant to you. You even like give it away to people. You don't even have to think about jobs anymore because you know that people will need you and your job is secure. So that's my definition of happiness, which is like feeling of security and not needing of something else outside of you.
I want you to hear the contradiction. In the end there, you just said, basically no need for something outside of you. And yet your entire definition of happiness essentially boils down to permanent control of things outside of you. Permanent control of how much people like you, permanent control of wealth and resources, permanent control of the amount of opportunities available to you. So there's a lot going on in there that raises question marks. One, can someone have permanent control like that? Is that even possible? Are you chasing something that can possibly happen? And another is you really seem sure that this would be satisfying for you. That end of all challenge, where there's no challenge left anymore. You can get anything easily. There's no challenge left. Do you think that will be satisfying permanently? Imagine you're hearing someone else. Well, you're hearing me reflect it back to you. I'm saying I've got this goal. My goal is to permanently control everything. How much people like me, how much sex I can have, how much money I have, permanent control. And once I've got that permanent control and it's not a challenge anymore, I will be totally satisfied without break forever. How does that sound to you?
If it happened to me, I would probably be happy like in the beginning, maybe like after a while, maybe afterwards I feel bored, or maybe I'll move on to something else that I feel like I have to chase. So I guess the chase will never end. It's always something that I have to chase. Just like you said, like every year you've got different things that you wanna pursue, like hobby or something, different hobby. I guess something like that.
This is actually really relevant to what we were talking about at the beginning with the helicopter. You put all this effort into fixing it and repairing it, and then you break it again. Tell me, what if they never broke? What if no matter what you did with your helicopter, you could fly it endlessly, never ran out of batteries, never, if it hit the ground, it never broke in any way, never needed to be fixed, tampered with, you never had to do any work, you buy it and it's perfect as it is, you don't have to do anything with it. Would that be satisfying for you?
Maybe in the beginning, yeah. But after that, yeah, no, that's not satisfying anymore. Maybe for like a few days after that, really, I still keep flying it. But afterward, maybe I just put it, in my drawer, and I will never fly it again.
So the frustrating part where you actually fix the helicopter and have to repair it is actually part of the whole relationship with the helicopter, isn't it? It's a necessary part for you to keep doing this.
Just like love and hate, basically,
Right. So I want to plant an idea in your head. The question really, what causes satisfaction? Is it an absence of challenge, or is it overcoming a challenge? You have a belief system with regards to your happiness model that satisfaction means nothing is challenging anymore. Nothing is difficult. Everything's solved permanently. But is that where satisfaction comes from?
My rational mind is saying no, it's not satisfaction at all. But it depends on what I'm pursuing, I guess. If those at the moment maybe like the three things that I want to pursue, and then if I find them like not challenging anymore, maybe I'll be happy for a while.
For a while. I imagine, I'm guessing at this point, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you've actually seen this already in your previous relationships with girls. I'm guessing when you finally got them, they say, I'm yours, I'm your girlfriend now, that sense of accomplishment, that you had exactly what you think is going to happen, is you're satisfied for a little while.
Mm.
And then dissatisfaction comes back.
Mm.
I want you to just take a second, look at your life. Being 4 decades you've been alive. Is there anything you're permanently satisfied with?
That's a huge question. No, nothing. Maybe I felt satisfied for a while. Just like I said, after I achieve something,
Mm-hmm.
then I always look for another challenge, I guess. Either like the same part of my life or maybe different part of my life.
Well, this is really important stuff because your goal of happiness is dependent on the idea of permanent satisfaction. All pain
Yes.
goes away. For 40 years, you've been mixing this recipe and you still haven't solved it. Now, you're not a stupid guy. What would you say if somebody had been trying something for 40 years and they couldn't figure it out?
Maybe just gonna give up.
Maybe it's not possible. Have you ever
Maybe it's
heard
not
of
possible.
alchemy? The alchemists who try to turn lead into gold?
Mm, mm,
I don't know the details, but it's something about the chemical properties of lead and gold. They're only like 1 unit, 1 atom difference or something, right? Those, on the periodic table, you've got lead and gold, and their scores are like really close. And so
mm,
there's this kind of theoretical perspective. If you can just make the slight adjustment to the chemical property of lead, it turns into gold.
mm,
And I don't know the story in detail, but apparently a lot of people dedicated their entire lives to figuring that out. The idea, if I can turn lead into gold, then I can take this essentially worthless substance and turn it into a highly valuable substance. I think it'd be fair to say, based on the little that I know, that combined, there have been thousands of years dedicated to turning lead into gold, and no one has ever done it. Because as any chemist will tell you, those properties look close, but it's actually not possible to make that shift. There is no way to turn lead into gold. It is beyond the laws of physics. It's beyond the laws of
mm,
chemistry.
mm,
But somebody will spend their whole life trying to turn lead into gold to make the impossible possible without even questioning, why do I want gold that badly?
mm,
Even if this can be done, would it be satisfying? So you're trying to, I think, if you've been spent 40 years on this, you've done all the pickup stuff, you've done everything you possibly can, you're as intelligent in this as a human can be, you've studied the shit out of it. 40 years, maybe 30 if we don't include childhood, but I'm guessing you're probably seeking some sort of approval even back then.
mm,
Maybe the recipe can never work. Seeking other people's approval can never bring satisfaction and happiness for long. And B, maybe permanent happiness and satisfaction, even if it was possible, isn't as enjoyable as you think it will be. I want you to notice the helicopter thing, because this is really relevant because it's real. You can measure it. It's been in your life for a long time. When you're fixing the helicopter, it's frustrating. And you think, maybe I would enjoy this more if I didn't have to do this. Like when it breaks quickly while you're flying it, you're like, oh, for fuck's sake, I got to fix it again. And you think that's a bad thing. And yet, what if the joy of flying it is directly relevant to how much frustration was needed to fix it? What if the reason you can keep enjoying the helicopter thing after the initial phase where it's easy and you get over it is because you have to keep putting frustration in it. You have to keep investing in this thing for a reward. challenge, reward, challenge, reward. We can also see if it's all challenge and no reward, that's deeply unsatisfying. So a recipe that says I've got to do something that's endless challenge with no satisfaction, that's not happiness. But maybe endless satisfaction with no challenge is also not happiness. When you were describing happiness, the thing that stood out to me is you said every day. And a lot of people believe this. They believe, look, if every day was a good day, I'd be happy. Without seeing the two faults in that line of argument, one is there's no human who has ever been happy every day, so is it possible? And two, are you sure you would enjoy that? Every day without a break? No pain, no frustration, no confusion, no anger, nothing, just pure joy endlessly, 24 hours a day.
That's really true though, because you wouldn't know if you're happy, if you're happy or not, if you don't actually feel the opposite of happiness. And just same thing, like you don't know the color of black if you don't see white. So the recipe is you actually have to feel both of them, happy and unhappy at the same time, one after another. Because, for example, when I was still in Indonesia, like I see all this poverty, like miserable, and then like traffic and all that bullshit, like people killing each other just for small things like cell phones. That was fucked up, Like when I came to New Zealand, there's like none of them actually like really happened, And I see like some people are still whinging of small things, just like, oh, look at this traffic in Auckland. I was like, this is fucking nothing compared to Jakarta. Like, well, what are you guys talking about? And then it's like there are almost like no killings in Auckland, not even like every day. But compared to Jakarta, it's probably like at least 3 people got killed every single day. It's like, and people are still whinging about, oh, the weather's too cold, too hot. It's like, God.
So you have this perspective, don't you, that allows for a comparison. I'm interested, how long were you in Auckland before you started complaining about Auckland traffic? How long before you adjusted? Something clear is coming through here, which is we're not going to get to a potential recipe of how to get a girlfriend here, because maybe the whole idea of baking the cookie in the first place isn't working for you. So one of the things you and I have been working on, obviously, together for quite some time is, what if there's another way to live, a completely different perspective on what it means to have a good life, or what it means to enjoy being a human, being alive. Maybe it's not about getting married so you're permanently happy. Maybe that idea is both impossible and it's a scam. You wouldn't actually enjoy it that much. I want to share with you, I had the same perspective you had coming from Jakarta to Auckland when I went to the Maldives for my honeymoon recently. And I got to see what rich looks like really proper rich. Not like, earns a decent amount, but millionaires rich. Now, it was very much luck that we went to this resort, because for a start, it was a gift from my parents, and we managed to find like a deal where it was like 2/3 the price it usually is. So we were definitely the poorest people there by far, and we're not poor, but we're poor there, we were just blown away at the level quality of the service and the food and everything. It was just beyond anything we'd ever done. And we've traveled a lot. And there were other rich people there. And it was interesting because there was distinctly two types of rich people there. People who appreciated it and enjoyed it, and people who didn't. That was it. It was really like separated into two categories. And I want to share that comparison. There was this one guy, I think he was either a single dad or the mum never came out of the room. He had a very small baby, under a year old, and a little like 2-year-old or something, very active and talking and running around. And this guy was like fucking dad of the year. He's managing these two kids constantly, always enjoying it, playing with them, interacting with them, joking with the staff, making friends. You know, where most of the parents were struggling with the kids around breakfast time, he'd turn it into a game and everyone had fun. I'm like, this guy's fucking super dad. I could never do this. All by himself, no mother to help, both kids really needy and dependent on him. And he was just living it up. Clearly, very rich guy. I think I saw a Rolex hanging off his arm and, you know, he's killing it. And then, like, there was this one moment where in the restaurant, and he's at one table and there's this other couple at a table right next to him, and the contrast. This other couple, they're done up in all the gears, looking as fancy and as rich as possible. They're on their phone maybe the entire time, even though they're clearly on their honeymoon. They're just scrolling, you know, ignoring the great weather, the diving opportunities, the pool. They're just scrolling. And they complained about every little injustice that occurred to them. If a drink came and it didn't have ice in it, you know, or if the lady was asked to put on a dress because you're not allowed to wear a swimsuit in the restaurant, they complained about everything as if it was a major slight against them. And I could just see these two worlds. One guy, it's not about the money. He knows something. He's able to appreciate every little moment somehow. And these people have everything that everybody wants. And all they do is bitch and moan and distract themselves with their phones. And what I saw in that picture is the undeniable truth. Money's not the answer. If it was, I'd be seeing 2 happy tables. I was only seeing 1. And that's the whole resort was split that way. There are the people who are like just loving it, like, holy shit, this is awesome, sun and sand and snorkeling and being with the person I love. And I'm not saying they were endlessly blissfully happy, but they appreciated it. And then there were the others who complained it was too hot or too cold, or they were just scrolling on their phones or arguing with their partner or whatever. And they just never seemed to really enjoy their time there. You know, when you talk about jealousy, I used to get jealousy seeing rich people. You get jealousy seeing what looks like maybe the happy couples. But maybe just because they're in a couple, that's not the reason they're happy. Maybe they've figured something out and they enjoy that thing together, but it's not actually them being together that makes that happen. One of the things I learned, I used to think that being in a relationship with no arguments was a happy relationship. My wife and I, we have our disagreements. And I always like her more afterwards. That contrast of like, okay, we're a team again. That feels good. And it actually feels better than just before when it was easy. And it's helped me to realize, like, it's probably important that we always have some disagreements. That we always have some moments of frustration towards each other and moments of kind of wishing the other person thought another way and so on. As long as we're open and honest about it and healthy about the way we express it, it probably makes us love each other more and keeps the spark alive. I'm ranting a little bit. What are your thoughts on what I'm saying?
I just want to know, like, what sort of argument do you guys have? Because when I see my parents argue, I don't think they're happy.
Yeah, the word argument's a pretty loaded one. There's no shouting, there's no name calling, there's no insults, very little blaming. It's mostly just expressions of emotion, like that makes me angry, or I'm frustrated when you do that, or I don't understand what you're saying, or why do you see it that way? And it's a discussion where we're both feeling emotion, but we're still being loving towards each other. Like I might say something like, look, I'm all upset and I'm trying to control you right now. I don't want to do that. So let me just breathe. And I'll say things like that rather than fuck you, you fucking bitch, like some people argue, right? So when I say argue, I mean we're not in agreements, but I don't mean we're being unloving towards each other.
Right. I guess the key word is blaming. That's what I see on my parents. They just blame each other on little things, like who's cleaning the dishes, for example.
Right.
Or maybe like my mom, she often break things, and then my dad just keeps telling her like, don't push it too hard or maybe just listen to me when you're using that machine, you're gonna end up breaking it again. And then it just like those small things, So it seems like my dad's blaming her for doing something that he doesn't like, and my mom doesn't like my dad blaming her, and just like back and forth all these stupid little arguments, and also not just that, but also they bring up the past, which is like it's never been unsolved, but they just move on, and the next argument is coming up again.
So this is a great example of what we're talking about, because you've got this idea in your emotional mind that being married will be permanent happiness, and yet right there is an example of the opposite. Well, not the opposite exactly, but evidence that marriage alone is not enough for permanent happiness. And there's also a key element here. We start to see the recipe for another way. One is if there's blame in the recipe, the system breaks down. The potential for happiness is destroyed by the endless blame. The blame constantly is seeking out the next thing, isn't it? They're always looking for their next thing to blame the other person on. You can see people like this with their entire lives. Every time something goes wrong, their first thought is, whose fault is this? They're always looking for it. Like that's the most important thing to solve, right? Like they have a car accident. The car needs to be fixed. People are injured. And the first thing they say is, you crashed into me. Like that's the important bit right now. There are people whose main focus is blame. So we start to get a sense, well, maybe the thing I'm looking for involves removing blame. So we can see that a lot of your dissatisfaction that you talked about from when you're younger, one way to frame that was blaming God. Why don't I have my rewards, God? I've been a good boy. You're not being fair. There's blame there. And where there was blame, there was unhappiness, wasn't there? Resentment, jealousy. What do you say? Pressure, neediness. So I'm not saying that this blame thing is just an example. It's not the whole recipe, but if happiness isn't about permanent satisfaction and security and permanent control over the outside world, then maybe it needs to be redefined. Maybe you need a new thing to cook. If it's not a cookie, maybe it's a cake. And what's the recipe for a cake? It's going to be quite different to a cookie. It's a completely different thing to cook. So I think that's the thing that's missing at this point. You've got an idea that the cookie, the marriage, and then you're happy forever is like alchemy, lead into gold. It can't be done. And even if it was done, you wouldn't enjoy the taste for long. But what you don't seem to have is a clear new thing to be cooking, a new recipe, a new goal, a new definition of happiness. I'd like to sort of challenge you to maybe have a first go at it right now. Understand it would be a draft. You're not sure on the answer yet. You're just starting, really. But what's the new definition of happiness that lines up with what you know now around what makes you enjoy life?
Um, I guess now you kind of like manipulate my mindset right now. You change like my rational thinking at the moment. It comes to my conclusion that also from experience is I find happiness if I can find the satisfaction of overcoming a problem. For example, I started this remote control thing like 3 years ago. So I started from airplanes, you know. In the beginning, I just crash, just like helicopter right now. And I stopped crashing like 6 months ago. And I was thinking like, huh, holy shit, I'm fucking good now. So I just kept flying the airplanes. And then after like a month, it's like, oh, I'm not crashing anymore. I want to find a new challenge. I moved on to helicopter. Now I'm frustrated right now. But I feel like, this is probably like a new challenge, even though it's a bit more expensive and also a bit more difficult to solve. But I, I, I can solve every single time I crash, you know? I can fix it every single time. So I guess I'm actually happy by feeling miserable and solving the problems at the same time. I guess so. It's kind of fucked up right now, you know? It's just like really blur my metrics, my reality at the moment. Maybe it is. I have to actually find a problem that I can solve it. Just like Mark Manson says, like you don't hope life to be like problem free. You hope life to be easy problems, or maybe a problem that you can solve, because it's never been a problem free in this life. For example, when you're single, you've got problems of being single. When you're having a relationship, you have problems of having a relationship. So there's always some problems. When you're poor, you have problems with being poor. When you're rich, you've got too much money, and it becomes your problem as well. So you don't hope for a problem-free life, but you hope for a problem that you can solve, I guess, that brings satisfaction at the end. Yeah, it's my conclusion.
It's very powerful. Now I'm quite biased here, and maybe that will explain some of my manipulation, which is I agree with you, and it's important for me to be careful of that bias, because if we're both wrong, or if it's wrong for you, then it'll pull you down the wrong direction. But that's essentially the same conclusion I came to with the same issue, which is my original recipe for happiness was permanent problem free, essentially. A girl who loves me forever and I don't have to do anything more about it. Money that flows in and it doesn't get any harder to make. And a body that maintains itself, but the gym isn't difficult to do. It's just this idea of everything's easy. The thing is, I got to experience some of that. Like I crossed the threshold of money where I no longer had to worry about money at all. My money problems still remained. I still had difficulty with that part of my life. It was briefly satisfying, and then it was just like, oh, but how do I save? And should I start my own business? It very quickly went away. And then, like you, when I read Mark Manson and the way he put it, it's about finding good problems to have, better problems. I was like, oh, I'm always looking for better solutions. I should be looking for better problems. Now, a good problem is one that can be solved, but not too easily. And it's also a problem that's relevant to your quality of life. Like the problem of having a terrible flatmate is a shitty problem to have. Whereas the problem of like, how do I start my next business? It's a good problem to have. The problem of like my psycho partner tearing apart my house every time I get a text message from someone else, that's a bad problem to have. But the problem of trying to meet a good connection and build a relationship with someone I actually love, that's a good problem to have. It's a much better problem to have. It's a better problem
Huh.
to be sort of lonely while single than lonely while in an awful relationship. That's an upgrade.
Huh.
We also see that a problem that's unsolvable is not a good problem to have. A problem that's all frustration and no satisfaction. It needs to be the right amount, doesn't it? You know, I just saw a study come out recently. I'll send you the link or try and cite it later. It was a big sample size. It was a pretty relevant study where they found like that ideal satisfaction comes from about an 85% failure rate. So if you're doing something and about 85% of the time it's technically a failure and 15% of the time it's a success, that's the perfect ratio for like full enjoyment of something. Right? So you think of like, say, an athlete and they win 15% of their races and they lose 85%. They're going to find that really they're going to really be into that. If they win all the time, it becomes annoying, frustrating, blasé. And if they lose all the time, it's just devastating.
Hmm.
We need that sort of right amount where this is really fucking hard, but I can still kind of do it just.
Yeah.
We combine that principle with what you just described, which is if it gets to the point where it's now getting too easy, you need to go find a better problem to have. Time to upgrade. Time to go from being the big fish in the small pond to finding a bigger pond where you're small again until you're big, and constantly moving, constantly upgrading. What I like is that your new definition has this kind of rolling upgrade feel to it. You're always adjusting, always finding the new thing, whereas your old one was static. You just get one place and you stay there forever. The old one doesn't line up with the laws of the world, the laws of the universe, of physics. Nothing stays the same permanently. So no strategy of staying the same permanently can survive in this universe. Nothing lasts permanently. But what we can see with, say, the laws of adaptation and evolution, the things that survive best are the things that constantly change, constantly upgrade. All the species that have ever gone extinct didn't upgrade quick enough to their new situation. Now, it's not like it's their fault, but you say you change the amount of salt in the ocean, only the animals that go, okay, I'm going to take on this new salt. I'm now a saltier fish. They're the ones that survive. All the rest of them choke to death. Right? Your new definition of happiness: overcome a problem, find a good problem to have, learning, better problems, new challenges. That sounds like evolution and adaptation.
That really reminds me about my pickup days. The reason why I did it because like every once in a while I kind of like enjoyed it. I used to do day game a lot, and then I could get like instant date, like I quite often can connect with girls. Like my Albert Park is the best place for me. Because like tourists, they know they're not gonna stay for long, and then they feel like I'm threatened by my presence, so they feel like they feel scared basically. When I ask them for like, what are you doing in the next 10 minutes? Let's go get a coffee. And we just had this conversation a lot. I remember there was like this one Dutch girl that I approached at Albert Park, and then I ended up spending like 6 hours with her. I took her on my motorbike, and we went to Mission Bay. But back then, my mission was, how do I get her? How do I get her? Instead of just like enjoying, like, wow, I can actually connect to random girls. I have actually the ability to talk to girls that I'm attracted to and have a connection with them. But I didn't have that mentality. All I was thinking, like, how can I actually show it off to my friend that finally I scored a girlfriend from Albert Park? That was my main mission. just getting approval from other pickup guys, basically.
Yeah.
And now I look back, just like, wow, there was such a waste of time. Why did I do that? Why? I mean, like, if I do it right now and I go back to Albert Park and I have different mindset, probably I'm gonna keep doing it over and over again without having this mindset of scoring something. I'm just going there to talk to girls and find a connection. If I don't find connection, that's fine. I won't go back home and then feel miserable. But back then, I would be feeling miserable.
Starting to see a new picture come through. See, the funny thing I see so often is somebody will be doing something to make themselves happy and they're miserable doing it. But if they just change why they're doing it, they can actually keep doing it. That doing it was okay. It's why they're doing it and a little bit of how they were doing it that made them unhappy. So if I go up to talk to girls using pickup to get a girl and impress everybody, I'm going to be miserable in the long term. I get some small wins here and there, but because it's never permanent, I'm always disappointed that it's not permanent. I'm disappointed when they stop texting me back. I'm disappointed when the relationship breaks up. I'm disappointed when the conversation ends. But if I had you a new perspective, which is what challenges can I overcome today? Oh, I'm scared to talk to her. So talking to her, that's my challenge for the day. Not getting her. It's going up to her. That's the bit. That's the bit where the satisfaction is going to happen. It's hard, it's scary, and then I do it. 85% difficult, 15% fun kind of thing. And maybe today it's easy to talk to people. So the next challenge is to be more honest with them. The next challenge is to connect with them even deeper. Next challenge is to invite them into my life. Whatever it is, it's actually, all of it looks very similar to what you'd be doing with pickup, but it's done for such a different reason. It's a completely different recipe, really. Just the behavior is similar. But whereas the pickup artist might hit a moment where he's like, I'm scared of losing her, so now I'm going to play a game and be manipulative to keep her. You'd be like, oh, I'm scared of losing her. There's a challenge to overcome. Losing her. Let's see if I can handle it. So I'll be honest, see what happens. And then losing her actually becomes a win rather than a loss. Like, holy shit, I was honest enough to lose somebody. Challenge completed. It also allows you to detach from one of the key elements, as you've identified. One of the key elements in your misery is that it relied so much on other people's approval. Other people had to say you're a good boy. Yeah. Whether it's God or your parents or your pickup friends or the girl, all of them had to like you for this to, that was a part of the recipe. It was the key ingredient. And at any moment, somebody can take that ingredient out and the recipe falls apart again.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about before, what if the new ingredient is your own approval? Would you choose whether or not to give it?
That is so true, man. You just really hit the nails right now. Just really, God. Remember I told you I've got this close friend, my Indonesian friend, that I always suck up to him. He's a boat boy, because he always teases me about people can't understand my English because I've got too strong accent, and then I speak really fast, and then people can't understand me, and then I just like, you know what? Fuck you. I don't care what you say. You know what? I'm gonna learn how to fly an airplane, and my biggest challenge is talk on the fucking radio. Making radio calls, talking to towers sometimes. I stutter, I mumble. And you know what? After I get my fucking pilot license, I'm gonna take him to fly and fucking impress him.
Great example, because the flying and even the working on your pronunciation so that you can do it, that's all fine. Doing it for him is the problem. You change that to doing it for you, suddenly it's healthy again. There's some things in my own life when I made this similar change, there was like, okay, there's something I've been doing for someone else, but actually I'd like to do it for me too. So I don't need to stop doing that thing. I just need to change who I'm doing it for. And I need to understand, like, what does that mean? How do I change that? But there are other things I'm like, you know, if other people aren't impressed by that, I don't want to do it anymore. So I never really wanted that. It was never for me. You know, a great example, I used to play in a covers band. I hated the music. I hate pop music. I hate pop rock. Maybe one out of 50 songs that we did, I enjoyed. And so when I'm like, okay, if I stop doing this to try and get laid and try and be the cool guy in the band, and I was just doing it for my own enjoyment, would I do it? And the answer was a clear fuck no. This sucks. It was really obvious. But playing in a metal band where nobody came to our gigs and we made no money and there were no girls there, I enjoyed playing even when there was one time we were playing, the venue was so empty that the staff were putting the chairs up while we were playing. It was brutal. And I was like, yeah, I still enjoy this. This one's for me. You know? I play music that most people hate and nobody comes to our gigs and I still love it. So that one's for me. I'll keep doing that one because it's challenging. The music's difficult. Playing on stage is scary. You know, funny thing is it's scarier with a small crowd than it is with a big one. Small crowd is like 6 people. You can see their eyes, you know, it's terrifying. So like I get a sense like the helicopter thing, you clearly do that for you. And then there's other things like going up and meeting strangers in the park. I think you could do that for you. You just have to change why you're doing it, what goals you had when you were there. Instead of the goal to get and keep someone and show them off like a trophy fish to your friends, think, well, what would the challenge be? What's a good challenge for me today? What's something it's not too hard, but it's definitely not too easy. Just the right amount where I'll be proud of myself if I give it a go. Completely changes things.
Yeah, the problem is once in a while, I still feel like people want to see my progress. If people don't see that, I feel like I'm a failure. It's fucked up.
Well, that's something that needs to change in the recipe then, isn't it? We don't have all the answers here today. Just a sense of a shift of direction, rearranging the compass to go in a different direction. And what I want you to do over the next week or so is to start fleshing out that recipe, start brainstorming, writing down ideas. What's the new way going to look like? What is it going to need from me? What changes will I have to make to live by this new way? What will I need to be careful about? You know, what's the old way when it tries to get back in? What does that look like? How do I manage that? Because you're in a transition now. This isn't actually obviously the first conversation we've had about this. We've talked about this a lot. But the transition going from one system to a new one, very difficult. It takes a while before the new system really is in place because emotionally you're still attached to the old system. It's just rationally you're into the new system. The emotional side needs to be brought over, and that's done through experience. If you go and do things, you go, okay, I'm doing that challenge. Okay, that was fun. Then emotion goes, oh, actually, I like this new way. This is good. And it's convinced by doing it. You can't tell your emotional side, hey, this is a better way to live. Because the emotional side is like, look, prove it or it didn't happen. I need to feel good about doing this or it doesn't count. The key is to understand it doesn't have to feel good all the time. Maybe just 15% of the time. And it needs to be connected to a sensible difficulty, a problem that's frustrating but good to solve. Problem you like to have. Like the problem of fixing your helicopter so that you can fly it. It's a sensible problem to have. It's tough because, as you say, like it feels like a mind fuck. It's what people call a paradigm shift, where the whole sense of reality and the rules that apply to it changes. You know, for me, it feels like a death when that happens. Like actually, like the old me actually literally dies. He's just a memory, you know, he's just in the memory books now.
Absolutely. And also I feel a bit of fear as well in it. Feel like really unknown territory. Because, you know, like the old recipe, obviously like you know, this didn't work, but it's familiar. But not a new recipe. I haven't even proven anything. It might work, might work, might not. But are really unfamiliar, you know, it's just unknown. So what, all of a sudden, in my head, just all of these questions like, what if it doesn't work? Why? What if that 15% of the time when I'm successful just doesn't work? What if being single and not having a relationship can be a lot happier than being in a relationship? Just, yeah, something like that.
That's normal. It'd be weird if you didn't feel that way. One way to look at it is you gave the other way 40 years to work. How long will you give this new way? What's long enough for you to say that was a decent try?
Yeah.
Is it 24 hours? Is it 3 months? Is it a year, 2 years? For example, when I decided I wanted to be a coach, I said 5 years. Try my best to be self-employed for 5 years. If it doesn't work out, I'm allowed to go back to being an employee. But at least I have to give it a 5-year crack before I can be sure whether or not I've got what it takes.
That's right. You know, ever since I started Brojo, you know, I was just using Brojo to get a relationship, basically. Mm-hmm. And I thought because they was the only happiness, you know. But it just, in the last 12 months, especially after we had personal coaching, you know, it just really boost my my mindset, basically. It's probably like, you know, like I learned a lot in the last 4 months than in the last 5 years I started Brojo. I mean, yeah, just I started, you know, using honesty as a pickup method.
Yeah.
Just, I didn't even realize it, you know. Even like right now, sometimes I'm using it without me being conscious about it. And then right now the question is, what's the time frame that I have to put, you know, like to try this method, basically, you know. I don't know. I don't have any answer right now, but I'm a bit scared, to be honest.
One thing to look at is how similar fear and excitement are physically. They're so close to each other. It's like lead and gold a little bit. Very, very similar. All the qualities, kind of the feelings that go through your body. If you measure someone on the various scales of sweat and heart rate and everything, fear and excitement are almost identical on the graphs. One of the main differences is whether you're saying, oh no, or oh yeah. The transition from fear to excitement is like, fuck yeah, let's do it. You can see it when somebody does bungee jumping. I remember when I've only been once actually. So when I went bungee jumping, the person before me froze out and couldn't do it, you know? And I'm right after them like, oh, I have to see them do like a 15-minute panic attack and then it's my turn. Fuck this, you know? And they didn't do it. They backed out. And I was sitting there probably, you know, as they're putting the things on your feet and you're looking over the side, it's that biggest one in New Zealand. It's a beast. It's like jumping in, like out of an airplane. And I was just basically starting to feel the panic. And then I just kind of switched it and I just went like, fuck yeah, let's do it. And the feeling didn't change, but my mind did. And now it was a challenge. It wasn't an enemy that's going to crush me. It's an enemy I'm going to crush. Same amount of fear essentially, but it was different. It was a thrilling feeling rather than a terrifying feeling. You like challenge. That's clear. You like a challenge that can be overcome, not an impossible one, but one that's not too easy either. And there's like a meta to the micro here, which is figuring out this new way involves doing a challenge that's hard to do. So the new way about looking for challenges is challenging to even try, which is promising because it shows you that there's just one way for all of this. At every level, it's always about what's the next best challenge for me to take on. Now, I'm not saying that's the final answer. What I'm saying is you've come up with a new recipe that's based on evidence rather than hopes and dreams that other people had for you. We know the old way didn't work for 40 years, or otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation. So this new way, which seems to be a lot more rational, a lot more based in evidence, a lot more thoughtful. It wasn't given to you by God or your parents or your peers. You made it up based on your life and your experiences. It's quite a promising idea. It's not a promise as in it'll definitely go the way you want it to. It's not a guarantee of anything, but it doesn't sound like a silly idea. It sounds like a smart one.
Yeah.
I suggest a time frame that you can handle. Maybe say until the end of the year. Worst case scenario, you lose a couple of months. Right? By the end of the year, you're like, oh my God, this is not showing any signs of promise. Fuck it, I'll go back to the old way or I'll start over again. Fine. 2 months of conscious, dedicated attempt to live this way, measure it accurately, see how you feel about
it. Yeah. Remember you told me to keep asking myself last week, you told me, what is it like to actually fall in love with yourself?
Mm-hmm.
I have the answer, I would take myself out. I would actually date myself to movie, and then, I would actually impress myself every single day. And then also looking for a new challenge. But somehow the mindset kind of shifted to now find a new challenge to find a girlfriend. It comes back to like old method again, just like this old me trying to manipulate me towards the old way again. So last week I went out social dance, I feel like I have to get out. But when I was there, I didn't feel happy at all. I felt like I have to actually find a girlfriend right now. And I was thinking like, why, hang on. Why am I here just to think about it, Why am I not here just for dance, not for something else? But deep inside me, I feel like I still have to be like with someone. I felt like really lonely over there. So it's just like really hard to, to move on.
Mm-hmm.
But every single morning though, I feel like, I'm actually a bit more free. I don't actually think about relationship every single morning, right? Every single day. But just when I actually go out, sometimes in a scene, in the moment when I was there, I feel like this old me trying to come back to the old, to the old me again. Just, maybe you understand what I mean.
Evolution is a slow process. It doesn't happen with a single click and everything shifts at once. It's a battle between the old and the new. I often, I did a kind of analysis of my life and I figured out it took me 7 years to move from the nice guy people pleaser world that I had created into the integrity world, to completely make the shift where the nice guy in me now, he speaks up 5% of the time rather than 95% of the time. He's basically gone quiet. So it's about 7 years into fully integrated into my new system, my new way of living, my new definition of happiness. And all I can say is totally worth it. Because now I've got this new way from here on. And this new way is working fucking dynamite for me. The old way sucked. It never worked. The new way, it doesn't matter how a day goes, I can enjoy being me. You know, I can impress myself. It's available anytime I like. And the longer I do this, the better I get at doing it. The quicker I can think of ideas to impress myself. I'm practiced in it, becoming experienced in it. Another 10 years, I'll be an expert. So this won't be an easy transition for you. There will be a constant battle between old and new, but I've seen you over the time that I've known you. And as you say, there's been the time in Brojo and then the time you and I have worked together. And I see that you're winning the battle slowly. You're having more and more good times, just you. You're getting clearer and clearer understanding of what impressing yourself means. You're like winning 1 inch at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So take some hope in that. Every time the other guy fights back, it's because he has to, because he's losing. He's going to win some of the battles too. He might even win a lot of them. Right? That doesn't mean he wins the war in the end. Because that's the other thing, is every time he reveals himself, he's actually giving you information on how to defeat him. If he comes up at the party and says, oh, you got to find a girlfriend, and you go, actually, I'm going to reset why I'm here right now. My challenge is, can I dance with 10 new people tonight? Boom, reset. Now he's like, fuck, now I can't speak up at the party because he's got a strategy. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's just see. Let's let this sit in, let it sink in, let you think about it, take the parts you like, throw away the parts you don't like slowly over time. Just start thinking, what would this new system look like? What would a test look like? How do I experiment with this, play with it? Remember, you can always go back if it doesn't work out.
Yeah. The key is, like you said, you always to ask why question. Why am I feeling like this? Why do I have to score a girlfriend? Why am I feeling lonely when I'm actually surrounded by these people that I'm supposed to be dancing with? The key is like the question of why, and then makes me like more conscious about my thoughts, my little 12 years old Henry, or the Tony Robbins. Go get it, go get it.
Yeah.
Go talk to her.
Like I said, man, my opinion is you are winning the battle, but battles are hard. Everybody gets hurt in the battle.
Yes.
So
And also about being stronger than what other people tell me. For example, like my parents, they really want me to find someone, and then I feel like I wanna challenge their belief, but at the end I feel like there's no point of try to convince them. I just waste my time, but I just wish that they can actually stop telling me what they think is good for me.
another great example of a problem that's too hard to solve. You need a better problem to have. Problem of convincing them to change their views after their entire life has been one way. Too hard. You're not going to have a 15% success rate there. You're going to have a 0%. So maybe trying to convince them is not a problem worth having. Maybe just leave them, let them have that belief. Find somebody else who you can help in a better way. Somebody you can coach, mentor, support, who will actually listen. Redirect that energy. So that, I think that's a key element coming through in your new system, is you need to be able to identify quickly when a problem is too hard.
Right.
It's allowed to be quite hard. It just can't be too hard. So problem that takes 40 years to solve, too hard. Think of how many times you try to convince your parents. If you have a 0% success rate, too hard. not worth doing, not being done for the right reasons, maybe. Right. So those are the ones you walk away from. You know, some people say quitting is bad. I think quitting's excellent if you're quitting a problem that can't be solved, or you're moving away from something that's not good for you. You quitting on fixing your helicopters, that would be quitting. That would be, you know, you can do it. Just get through it. But you quitting on convincing your parents to change their rock solid beliefs, nah, that's a good quit. Fuck that. Right? It doesn't even help you. Even if they did change their beliefs, it doesn't do much for you. Let's see how you go with that. I'm going to get in touch in a few days and see how things went for you.
Right.
And yeah, I'm curious to see where this takes you. Remember, this is important that I point this out. My biases came in a lot during this conversation. I don't want you to just adopt my way. I want you to create your own. So maybe you'll keep some of what we've talked about. Maybe you'll add some bits from somewhere else. Maybe you'll throw away some bits. This isn't about you believing what Dan believes. It's about you deciding what Henry should believe for Henry.
Yes. Well, at the moment, you know, I just can't think of anything else. I guess what you say is maybe aligned with my mindset at least 90% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so far, yeah, I'll try your method, and I'll give myself a permission for like a couple of months. You know, and then yeah, I've been making a lot of progress in the last like 4 or 5 months ever since we started this session. I wish I could actually done it earlier, maybe, but maybe because I wasn't ready. Just like they said, you know, like if the student is ready, the teacher will come. Maybe because I wasn't ready, maybe because I was too stubborn, maybe, to convince myself that this is actually the right way of doing it.
Yeah.
And maybe because I've been listening to to wrong people.
I've been there myself, you know. There's a certain period of time where you can't give me advice because I'm not ready yet. You know, like my wife, she's always got great advice for me because she knows me really well. But she also knows that she has to like wait before she can tell me because I have to do this bit where I go get it wrong by myself first. And then I'm like, okay, I'm ready to listen now because I fucked it up. You know, if she tries to tell me before that, even when I know she's right, I'll resist her because there's this little bit where I have to do it first and go, okay, that didn't work. All right, I'll listen now. That's fine. We're only ready once we're ready, and once we're ready, then we can really kick into it. Yeah. So you're doing exactly what you can when you can. It just evolution's not fast, but it's very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Alrighty, bro. Let's wrap it up there for today.
Yep.
Thank you again for doing this and allowing other people to benefit from it. The conversation we had today, there's a lot of people who have very similar thing going on that need to hear what you have to say. So this wasn't like some weird, unique Henry thing. This is like a global guy problem that we're talking about. Absolutely.
And also, I want to point out about to guys out there, whoever you are, if you're feeling like if you've got something in your life that you feel that you are really weak, that can be your biggest strength. For example, like myself, you know, I'm addicted to sex and porn and masturbation. If I can overcome that urge of not doing it, it makes me like myself like stronger than ever. You know, so I make myself stronger for my biggest weakness. I guess that's how I put it. Maybe the same like you too. Then like in the past, you know, you've been like really nice guy, or maybe you're not being honest. But once you actually overcome yourself for being an honest guy, you just become a Superman.
Absolutely. I mean, that really lines up with what we talked about today. Like, it's the hardest problem to solve, which means it's solvable though, which means it's the
Mm.
best problem. You know, like me being dishonest, that was my weakness. I was just chronically dishonest. So becoming honest was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. It was fucking terrifying. I spent like years basically feeling anxious most of the time because of what I was about to say. Um, but it was like 85-15, you know, it was that kind of ratio.
Mm.
85% of the time I'm like shitting myself, it's really hard. And then 15% of the time I'm like, man, I finally did it. Fuck yeah, it's awesome. It's just the right amount. Um, you know, you and I, we both have, I was addicted to approval. I was addicted to comfort. I was addicted to all the things that everyone's addicted to, I guess. And overcoming that was the best use of my time I could possibly come up with. Like you say, your biggest weakness is your biggest opportunity for building strength. It's where all your satisfaction can come from. Awesome stuff, man. I'll be in touch again soon.
Yeah.
And thank you once again. And yeah, let's see what happens.